in welcoming Dr. Renee Acosta. Dr. Acosta is faculty and she is an assistant dean here at this college. And so she is the individual who made it possible for us to be here this weekend. I knew of Dr. Acosta because she wrote a textbook on sterile compounding specifically for pharmacy technicians. And so when I looked around at different places for us to have the convention, I emailed her and asked her, and it was such a quick reply. I had planned on waiting for months to get that reply, but she replied so quickly and just, I think you all agree, has been so gracious and kind to let us be here. So I will let Dr. Acosta tell more about herself, but please help me in welcoming her to the podium.
Thank you very much. It is actually our pleasure to have you all here with us today. And I purposely, out of respect for all of the colleges of pharmacy that you may be associated with, did not wear burnt orange today. But know that I bleed burnt orange, so it is definitely always with me. So disclosures. I don't have any disclosures. Hold on. Here we go. I don't have any financial disclosures. I have some personal ones that I want to share with you. Professionally, I have two great passions. One is over-the-counter medications. So that's my topic today. I'm delighted to be able to come and speak with you about that. Community pharmacist at heart, so definitely OTCs is a passion. But along the way, I found myself in education. So prior to coming here to the university, I started the pharmacy technician education and training program at Austin Community College. Why? Because well-educated and trained technicians who can do their job are what we all need. And so that is just something that became a passion of mine while I was a community pharmacist. I was only as good as the technician that I was working with. And so this has become a passion for me. I obviously left that program and came here to the university, and now I work with ASHP and ACPE on the accreditation side of pharmacy technician education and training programs. So please know that I, every day in front of the students, talk about you have to utilize your technicians to the top of what they can do and how important everything that you do is in the pharmacy on a daily basis. So excited to be with you. So let's jump into it. We're going to talk about, just kind of what is the current landscape of the over-the-counter market, some key trends. We'll talk about some of the hot topics that we're seeing in over-the-counter medications right now, and hopefully have some time for questions as we go through. So let's just start with talking about what is the OTC market. So let me ask you this, and those online, you can join in as well. Use your thumbs up or whatever. How many of you used an over-the-counter product today? Okay, I do this to my students as well. Okay, so look around. Those who aren't raising your hand, did you not brush your teeth? Oh, you meant those over-the-counter products. Did you not take a vitamin? Right? So when we say over-the-counter, we're talking a vast market of over-the-counter products. So most of us tend to think about what I took for my cough or my runny nose or whatever, right? So when you look at the over-the-counter market, there are about 800 active ingredients. And there are over 100,000 products. So what does that tell you about those products? They're using the same thing over and over and over. And so we have to be really concerned about our patients taking the same active ingredient or of a similar class in multiple products that they're taking. So we need to be aware, product duplication, and we're going to get into all of that. The other thing that I think is really important is that over-the-counter products are available. This says about 750,000 retail outlets. Some of those are pharmacies. But how many of you have seen them at a gas station? Yeah, in a bathroom, I don't know if they do that anymore. Not everything's credit card, but used to, right? You could put your 50 cents in and get them whatnot in a bathroom. So they're where we aren't. And I think that's what's important to remember. So when can we make the impact? We can make the impact when the patient is in front of us. And for full disclosure, yes, I have actually counseled somebody in a convenience store line because he asked the cashier, what do you have for, I don't even remember now what it was, but he said, what do you have for this? And he goes, well, we have. And so he took this gentleman to their little OTC section and said, well, here's what we have. And I go, please stop. I'm a pharmacist. How can I help you? So remember, they're going to get these where we're not. So what are the opportunities we have to make an impact? Regardless of where you work, your patients are taking over-the-counter medications. And so we'll talk about that a little bit as we go along. All right, so we've established that most of us have taken an over-the-counter today, even if it was just to brush our teeth. It's a huge market. So the last data that we have is 2024, and that's $44.3 billion. And that's why I like for you to think of the larger OTC market, which involves deodorant, toothpaste, medicated shampoo, not just the things we think about for pain, headache, stuff like that. If you look at, there we go, sales by category, upper respiratory by far, the hugest market that there is, and then analgesics. Any surprise with either of those? And for those of you live in Austin, if your nose hasn't started dripping yet, you're not outside enough because you are in the allergy capital of the state. But you'll see on here the toothpaste, antiperspirants, and then the antiseptic rinses. But upper respiratory pain, typically where most people are probably spending their money. And then we see in volume of units, kind of follows along the same line, more upper respiratory even units sold than toothpaste. So why? Why is over-the-counter such a big market? Why is it important? It's accessible. We just talked about that. They're going to buy them wherever they are. Who are my online? You guys got to participate too. Who are my large warehouse, Costco, Sam's, things like that? Who buys their OTCs at places like that? Oh yeah, because we can get 1,000 at a time, right? I don't have to come back. Or we order them online and they just show up at our front door. How cool is that? So they're everywhere. They are accessible. They're also affordable for most patients. So think about if my choice is I can run down to the local retail outlet and pick up an over-the-counter product, or I can take time off from work, I can make a doctor appointment. I can go sit in a waiting room. I can be seen. What are we going to do first? We're going to go try and treat it ourselves. I have treated myself into pneumonia. So I wouldn't recommend that, but it is accessible and it is affordable. We feel empowered. And I think that's probably something most of us can relate to. I feel like I'm in control. There's not some formulary that's driving my decision. It's what can I get from this vast array of products that are available. And we trust over-the-counter products. If it's over there, it must be safe, right? And so I think we've seen the OTC market just to continue to grow. It's also continuing to evolve. And we'll talk about that today of, what's different in the OTC market than when we saw maybe 10 years ago. So probably if I did a survey of this group, since the first of the year, most of you have probably changed something in your self-care habit. How many does that relate to? Online? All right, I'm getting some things. We've changed something. Maybe it is. For me, my struggle was flossing. I got lectured, right? Every time I went to the dentist, I'm like, I am going to conquer flossing. So I got that one done. Check. And so now it is, I just keep adding supplements, right? That one sounds good. Let me add that one. So, if this is what we're doing, it's definitely what our patients are doing. So we definitely have this desire for self-care and this desire to take better care of ourselves in general. In recent years, we've definitely seen the rise of the private label. So when you go to wherever it is you purchase your products, you can buy the brand name or you can buy generic, but it's not really generic anymore. Have you noticed that? It's your retailer's brand of whatever it is. And so we're seeing more and more retailers get involved in the private label. Definitely e-commerce. Like I said, you order it today, it's on your doorstep. It may be on your doorstep in a couple of hours. Definitely by tomorrow, most places. And then the OTC, prescription to OTC switch has continued to evolve. Not quite as many that are moving over as we saw maybe historically in the past several years, but that definitely still seems to be a trend in the OTC market. So let's dig into what's new. Let's start with those self-care habits. We saw continuous glucose monitors come out for diabetes several years ago. And great. But let's look self-care. Now we're seeing those move into the OTC space, not to treat or manage diabetes, but that whole self-care trend. I want to take control of my own health. I want to understand when I eat this, what happens to my blood glucose. And so what we're seeing, if you look at the self-care habits, is we now have glucose biosensors available over the counter for general health purposes. And so in 2024, we saw the Stelo come on the market. Has anybody seen this one? Have you seen it before? Okay, I'm getting at least one person online. And so with the Stelo, what this is, it is FSA and HSA eligible. It's ages 18 and up, but it's for people who do not use insulin. So this is not, I'm going to help you monitor your diabetes, but this is, can you understand how what you eat impacts your blood glucose? Also works with the Oura Ring. All right. How many of you have a smartwatch on today? So it's, yeah. Online, how many of you are wearing some type of a smartwatch, a Fitbit? All right, so just our timekeeping device is now part of our self-care, right? I just bought a new one about a month ago. I really got a new one because my battery wasn't holding long enough, but this one monitors my sleep. I don't know how you all feel about it. I know I didn't sleep well. I really don't need a text to my phone, we should do better. Yeah, I know, right? I don't need you telling me I need to do better. I feel it. So, right, we've got all this working together. The Oura Ring, I believe, works with, will work with like your smart watches, will also work with your biosensor. So, someone who's really looking at self-care, they can get a whole picture of what's going on in their body, and it's all linking together. This is a 15-day sensor. There's also the Lingo, and the Lingo is a 14-day sensor, so not a lot of difference between these. But again, for people who don't use insulin but want to improve their health and wellness, and I did want to point out between the two, if you go to their websites, one of them really talks about glucose tracking without finger sticks or a prescription. It's personalized, kind of this holistic view. The other one talks about navigating pre-diabetes. And these do at work usually with your smartphone apps. So I think that's another thing for us all to understand. One, they're on the market, but two, how are they being marketed to individuals? So if I'm in the physician office, I hear pre-diabetes, and then I see this marketed, I may be coming to you with a question of what is this and does this work? So being aware of that, I think, is important. We've also seen hearing aids move over the counter in recent years. Anybody work somewhere that sells hearing aids over the counter? So I see there's one. So we've now seen this move into the over-the-counter space. These are self-fitting. They are for people who have mild to moderate hearing loss. They are FDA regulated, so I think that is something that is important. But there's going to be some counseling and some work that probably the average person is going to need some assistance with. So I think some knowledge around this, if you're in a facility that has these, is important. And also for us all to know that they can buy them without a prescription. In 2024, the FDA also approved this hearing aid feature on the AirPods. So it's the first over-the-counter hearing aid software device. So what I hope you take away from this is the over-the-counter market. I'm going to get into drugs here in just a second, but it's more than drugs. It is these devices. It's other ways in which people want to take care of themselves. That's the trend that we're seeing in OTCs right now. And I think this is just the beginning. It's going to continue to evolve. We have all kinds of home testing and monitoring devices available. Now we're seeing those things where we can monitor our health. coming onto the market. All right, so what about those prescription to over-the-counter switches? I'm going to work backwards a little bit here. We saw Opill move from prescription to over-the-counter in 23. It's the first FDA-approved over-the-counter birth control pill. 38, as of right now, 38 states have actually enacted laws on the larger hormonal contraceptive prescribing by pharmacists. So some of you live in states where there's more things available as far as hormonal contraceptives go. For those not in those states, we have the one. We saw naloxone move over the counter. We saw Nasonex go over the counter. I believe this completes the over-the-counter nasal sprays, corticosteroids for allergies. So I want you to think back from whatever your first memory is of treating allergies to where we are now. So some of you may remember when Actifed was actually a prescription product. We don't even use Actifed anymore because that's way too much drowsiness for anybody, right? But we saw them slowly move into the over-the-counter space. But now that we have all the non-sedating histamines, all the nasal glucocorticoids, all of those are over the counter. So when you look at that upper respiratory number, it doesn't matter what I'm suffering from. For the most part, if it's allergy related, I can treat it over the counter. So it makes sense. Along those same lines, probably one of the areas where we didn't have anything over the counter was for the eye. So we could take an oral tablet, we could do nose sprays, but when you looked at the eye symptoms related to allergies, it was pretty limited. And so now what we're seeing is we're able to treat the eye symptoms related to allergies as well. And so we've seen the different ophthalmic solutions move. Astapro is the first antihistamine that's a nasal product that's available over the counter. So for those who maybe need the drying but don't want the side effects of taking an oral first-generation antihistamine, the Astapro is a great option. You still have some of the adverse effects, but not quite as many as what we saw with the oral. So now we've got both nasal as well as ophthalmic that are available over the counter. Here's the rest of them. The Pataday, when those moved over the counter in 2020. We also saw Sklice move into the over-the-counter space. That is for treating head lice. And then the Voltaren, which is the topical arthritis pain. And it is, if you're not familiar with it, it's non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. And it goes basically onto the joints. And it gives you, this is going back to kind of the amount to put on. So it is dosed based on the site as to what amount you would put on those different areas. But certainly when you think of topical pain relievers, haven't had a whole lot in a long time. Most of those are counter irritants, and we all walk around smelling like whatever that is for the day, right? Even though some of those are a little bit of the disappearing. So having diclofenac go over the counter was a really kind of a big win. in that space. So those are the prescription to over-the-counter switches that we've just seen in the past several years. At the end, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. Will we see more move? I think there's some attention in this space. I don't know. Are we going to consistently sort of see them trickle through like this is looking? Or will there be a larger influx? And we'll talk about that as we get closer to the end. But this is kind of what we've seen in recent years. All right. So now let's talk about all those other things that aren't drugs. Adaptogens and herbs. I don't know about you guys, but if you get on social media, this stuff is everywhere, right? Take this, take that, the testimonials. Is it real? Is it fact? Is it fiction? They're sort of everywhere. But this, the adaptogens and herbs are really gaining popularity right now. And so I'm going to go through some of these and talk about them in a little bit more detail. So here's what I think some great takeaways for you to kind of have in your back pocket if you're interacting with a patient and you're talking about these. Anytime we talk about anything that is plant-based, it's going to be impacted by the plant. Right? So where was it grown? That may vary crop to crop. What did they use to grow it? What part of the plant did they use? And so as we get into these, you're going to see it's really hard to find what we all look for as evidence, right? Give me the double-blind, placebo-controlled study, and then I'll know it works. Well, you're not going to find that in this space. So what's going to happen is I'm going to see it on whatever social media platform you choose. I'm going to see it. I'm going to go, oh, I have that, right? And I'm going to go and buy whatever this is and try it. I may stop at the pharmacy and ask some questions. I may not. And so as you're interviewing patients, regardless of your practice setting, if your job is to interview patients and ask, hey, what over-the-counter products do you take? You can bet these are not forthcoming, right? So how do you get that information from them? What are you doing for your health? Are you taking any herbs? And I think we're probably at the point of, are you taking any adaptogens? You may get some of, what are you talking about? But I think we're going to have to do better in our patient interactions and in asking our questions so that we understand what they're taking. Because what we do know is these may interact with their health condition. They may interact with their medications. And so the data is just not good. And you'll see as I get into some of these, there's just not the double-blind placebo-controlled study that goes, yep, here's what you can expect side effect-wise, and here are the things it's going to interact with. And so some knowledge on your part of, I need to be paying attention to these and call them out if a patient is taking them. So this is the list. This is the list I could find in searching what are the most popular adaptogens and herbs today. And this is probably outdated because I had to turn it in a couple months ago. So it's probably, there's probably some here that have fallen down the list and some others that have come up. I'm going to go into a few of the really common ones in a little bit more detail. But I will say the berberine, since putting this presentation together, I've seen it pop up numerous times. So I think it's probably one that's gaining some traction, and for you to be aware of. All right, so let's dig into these a little bit. Ashwagandha. I'm going to just take a poll. How many of you have heard something about it? All right, good. Online? All right, yes. So, and now here's the other part. How many of you relate to this? Stress and anxiety. Yep. Sleep? Well, we already know I don't sleep well. Although I did get a congratulations for going to bed on time last night, text this morning or whatever that is. So woohoo. The rest of it was not positive, but I did go to sleep on time. But we're seeing more and more, right? We live these high stress lifestyles, and we're seeing more and more about what are the products that are available for stress and anxiety. And if y'all aren't seeing it, then obviously that tells you a lot about what I'm seeing in apparently my lifestyle, right? But a lot about cortisol levels, right? How can you naturally lower cortisol levels? So ashwagandha, we hear a lot about it right now. So here's some interesting things. It is popular and has been popular for a long time in Ayurvedic medicine. These are the things it is supposed to help with. There's also some thought that it helps with improving cognitive function. What we know is it's probably well tolerated for about 3 months, but there's no long-term safety. So are our patients going to try this for 3 months? No, they're going to try for 3 years. And so that data anecdotally will eventually come out. There's question about effects on liver. There's question about effects on thyroid. Shouldn't take it if they're pregnant. And if it is a male with hormone-sensitive prostate cancer, they're saying they shouldn't take it. Most of the adverse effects GI related, which we would expect anytime adding an herb in. I think probably that cortisol, decreasing the cortisol, probably what a lot of people are looking at for that one. Turmeric is, again, another one that's been used for a long, long time. We probably associate it a lot with cooking. This one has been promoted for osteoarthritis, depression, allergies, itching, and high cholesterol. Well, those all kind of match together, right? So, again, likely safe, and the recommended doses for 2 or 3 months. You're going to find as we look at these, just not good long-term data. So when you are talking to patients, if your job is to take a patient history, what are you taking and how long have you taken it? And are we documenting that so that we have some type of record? And again, most of the adverse effects, GI. So not a big surprise there. Also in my digging, I saw possibly helps with heart disease, decreasing heart disease risk. There's some claims about helping with prevention or decreasing the risk of cancer, and now some things around Alzheimer's. All buzzwords, right, that we're all looking at. And so that awareness of these are things that your patients are taking because we want to take care of ourselves. We want to prevent these things. And there's just no guarantees with this. And so understanding that and helping your patients navigate it, I think, is important. Rhodiola. Now, this one has been common in Russia, Scandinavia, other parts of Europe, and you'll see a lot of these have much better documented use in Europe than here in the US. But this one, athletic performance, mood, cognition, energy, stress. Again, not a lot of reliable studies, probably okay for a few months. So you see the theme. So getting that information from your patients. This one does appear to interact with losartan. Probably others, right? You can't be just that one. So there's probably others. There's just not good data telling us what are the others that it's probably interacting with, but one to be familiar with. And my new obsession, not really obsession, I just want to understand this one more. Mushrooms. There's like mushroom coffee. They're everywhere. How are you all seeing them? Yes, they're everywhere. So there's medicinal mushrooms. It looks like lion's mane is probably one of the more common ones with the reishi, but turkey tail, shiitake, some benefits of potential anti-cancer, antioxidant, anti-diabetic. This is one I want to know more about this. What are we doing here? And if you dig in on this, again, it's more research is needed. But what I want you to take away from this is we're using them. And if we're not asking good questions, we don't know that they're using them. And there is a possibility that it may cause problems with other things they're on or other things they have going on. And so we need to do a better, across the profession in how we're asking our questions. And so I'll get on my soapbox a little bit. We need to do better there. The other thing, so this is like that pop quiz moment. How many active ingredients did I tell you there were available over the counter? 800. Okay. And how many products? A lot, right? 100,000. Okay. So if I came into wherever you work and we're having a conversation and you want to know about what over-the-counter products I take, if I say I'm taking, somebody give me a brand name, somebody here in the room, give me a brand name. I say I'm taking Zyrtec, which I did this morning because I live in Austin and allergies. If I say I'm taking Zyrtec, do you know exactly what that means? Well, I have allergies. What should be the follow-up to I'm taking Zyrtec? What's the follow-up to that question? What are you taking it for? Which one? How do you take it? Actually, I take Zyrtec D. Oh, that's a big difference from Zyrtec, right? And so last time I want you to think of your own personal experience. The last time you went to the pharmacy to buy your own over-the-counter product, was there just, I know I want X brand name, was there just the one? Oh my gosh, there's like a whole wall of them. Do I want the tablet, the caplet, the capsule, a liquid? Do I want regular acting, long acting? Do I have, and then let's get into combination products. I don't have just congestion. I have severe congestion, right? So we need to do a better job of what are you taking, and then we need to figure out exactly which one that is. Because there's not just one product with that brand name, there's a whole host of them. And so which one? Then, what else are you doing? And then we're going to get well, I have a cup of mushroom coffee. I take ashwagandha, right? Here's all the other things I'm doing. So remember, this all goes together when we're taking care of our patients. All right, I believe your next presentation is about obesity. Is that correct? So perhaps there will be some discussion of GLP-1. Yes? I see the speaker. They're giving me a yes. Okay. Totally changed what we're seeing in the OTC market. Now, all of a sudden, people are worried about protein. How much protein am I getting? Where am I getting it? And so you're going to see questions coming to pharmacies. If I take this, I've been told I need to get protein. What are my options there? Whey protein isolate is probably the one that we see the most. But, there are lots of places where we can get protein the right way through our diet. And I don't know about you, but I've changed my diet, right? Instead of the sour cream, now I'm going to go for the Greek yogurt. Your patients are doing the same thing. So, you got to think, what are all the things they're doing to take care of themselves? So we've definitely seen protein supplements change with the use of GLP-1s, creatine, fiber supplements, probiotics. All of that is growing and will continue to grow as we see the use of the GLP-1s evolve as well. So being aware, asking your patients and talking to them about the different ones. All right, that's GLP-1. I feel like this is a good segue. Anyway, we'll make it a good segue into current events. So, pain relievers, fever reducers. Acetaminophen hit the hot seat last fall. And now it's, okay, what do we do and how do we combat that? So I think it's important as technicians, you need to form your own opinion based on the information you have available. We talked about with the herbs, we want double-blind, well-controlled, double-blind, placebo-controlled, well-designed studies. They're not there. So as you see these things, you're going to have to learn about them and make your own decisions. Well, so what we know about all of the data around acetaminophen is that if you look at 2017, there was a meta-analysis of several large cohort studies, no clear causal relationship. In August of 25, there was a systematic review that indicated a possible association between prenatal acetaminophen use and neurodevelopment disorders. This is where we got into some issues. However, some of those studies did have several flaws. There's also some studies out of Norway and Sweden where they actually did some cohort studies with siblings and found no significant association between prenatal acetaminophen use and neurodevelopment issues. So data definitely was conflicting, but leaning towards no causal relationship. These are the statements that were put out by APHA and ACOG last year. And basically, the studies where there was potentially a relationship had some flaws. Most of the data is pointing towards no relationship. Think the other thing in any of these, because this is what's hot now, there will be something later. I think what to think about is benefit versus risk. So what's the risk of leaving the fever untreated? What's the risk of doing nothing? And so APHA and ACOG both came out in support of the use of acetaminophen as it is labeled. Will that change in the future? We don't know. Phenylephrine is one that we saw in the media over the past couple of years. In 23, the Non-Prescription Drug Advisory Committee concluded that scientific data doesn't support the use of phenylephrine as an oral nasal decongestant. That was moved to the FDA in 24, and there should be a final decision at some point. It's been pending since 25, and we'll see if they pull it off the market. So I think the thing for all of us to think about is if they do, then what? For those of you who've been around a while, you may remember phenylpropanolamine. Now I am dating myself, right? And all of you, if you nod with me. But phenylpropanolamine was like one of the go-to decongestants and over the counter in the 90s. When I went to pharmacy school, right, there was, it was probably in most of our combination cold products. And it was pulled off the market. And it wasn't really felt because we had pseudoephedrine and it was just put in its place and we were fine. With pseudoephedrine behind the counter, we don't have we'll just put this in and it's fine. So this will be very different in how it impacts patients, how it impacts pharmacies, because if it's behind the counter, we have to have a pharmacy. The pharmacy has to be open. And I didn't even get into, let's talk about we know there's retailers that don't have pharmacies that are selling over-the-counter products. But even those that have pharmacies, the store is open when the pharmacy's not. So that behind the counter, while great, and I hope there's more things behind the counter, and we'll get to that in a second, it does limit access to medications if the pharmacies are not open. So still more to come on phenylephrine. We're waiting to see what happens with that. So where do we go from here? Well, if you're paying attention to what's going on nationally, there is some question about expansion of the over-the-counter market. Are there going to be more things that are currently prescription that move into that space? Don't know. So pay attention, watch for that. We're looking at a potential category, which I find interesting, additional condition for non-prescription use, where a consumer must complete an extra step to see if the drug is right for them before purchasing. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a multiple choice test gone wrong. Probably shouldn't say that since this is recorded and live streamed, but right? I think you need to be aware of that. If this product is out there, what does it take for to get access to it? There is some safety and regulatory scrutiny. We're seeing it with phenylephrine. There are other over-the-counter ingredients that probably need some safety and regulatory scrutiny around them as well. And then monograph reform. What I think is important for us, all of us, to understand is the over-the-counter market is very fluid, meaning my product today, if I'm a manufacturer, so as long as I put that product on the market based on the monograph for those active ingredients, I can put it on the market. If next week I decide I want to change one of those active ingredients, I can. And there's not a big warning to consumers or healthcare providers of, hey, we've reformulated. It just changes. And so I think one thing that we can all as healthcare providers remember is we have to stay current on everything. We've got to pay attention in that over-the-counter market. And let's say you are someone who interviews patients for a med history. You know, which of these do you take? And you know, how regularly do you take them? We need to understand, is it a product they bought last week or 2 years ago? Let's not even get into, anybody have way expired OTCs in your cabinet? I'm sure not. You're going to go home from here. Those of you at home in your break, go clean them out. See what's expired. Because we put them there, we don't use them, and then the next time, 2 years from now, oh yeah, I remember I had this, we pull them back out. Patients do the same thing. And those drugs may have labeling or whatnot may have changed in that time. All right, so what are the key takeaways? If you remember nothing else that I have said for the past 55 minutes, here's what I want you to know. Patients are using over-the-counter products. That product market is huge, it is vast, and it's changing. And so what you need to do is think about how can you collaborate with your pharmacist on how to support them and your patients in the over-the-counter setting, because we're all interacting with them. And some of you may be thinking, yeah, but I don't need this as a pharmacy technician. Doesn't apply in my job. Well, it applies as a human because you're taking these products too. So the takeaways still work, whether or not it actually applies in your practice setting. All right, so with that, I left a little time maybe for questions. Any questions? Yeah.
I do have a quick one. So other than the nature-made OTCs that are USP approved, if they're not available, do you have another go-to where the active ingredients have been hopefully verified?
So you want to look for the USP verified, right? That's key. The other, and the previous speaker can definitely speak to this, there is just no guarantee in a lot of those others because of, like I said, the difference in crop and things like that. It makes it on the natural product side really hard. They have to, good manufacturing processes, but it doesn't really ensure the ingredient, and especially if I'm buying manufacturer A versus B, even though they may look the same, they may not be the same when you start taking them. Anything you want to add to that?
So you want to do a vendor qualification. So Thorne, Douglas are some really good reputable companies to buy supplements from. And then fullscript.com. You can get an account with them and you can get good pricing on a lot of vitamins and things like that as well. If you work sometimes with a practitioner, if you're a pharmacist or maybe even a technician, they may let you do it. You can set up an account and you can make recommendations with them as well.
And if your employer, if that's not right, if you have no control over buying and whatnot, I think it really is understanding that manufacturer to manufacturer, they're going to be a little bit different when you get into herbs and botanicals specifically.
Could I have a clarification on the shiitake mushrooms? Because is that a concentration, or because, no offense, my husband's Japanese, we eat shiitake mushrooms on a regular basis in soup. Is that a concentrated, or is it the dried ones?
So, yes and yes. So I think that there's not enough information based on what I can find. There's just not enough information on the mushrooms to truly understand. Most of what I think you're seeing is the concentrated.
Okay.
But, right, are you going to get benefits? And that's where this is coming from. Benefits from having it in your diet, yes. But most of these are all in some concentrated form.
Okay, because
yeah,
you can buy dried shiitake mushrooms in any Asian market.
right. Yeah, and it really has to do, it is around how much, it's around that dose.
Thank you. Very interesting. I have a lot of things I need to investigate now. That first slide with all the list of herbals I haven't heard of.